Pacific Points, Cabo Enterprises, ITE, and Jack in the Box. Proud to present this episode of the Link Miss a Link Miss a Lot. What'd you miss? Well, Super Typhoon Omicron. That's the weirdest super typhoon. I've never been in a super typhoon where we just don't even put the shutters up or nothing. Kids, go to school. Super typhoon. Anyway. But if you guys think this car score discussion is interesting and inconsistent, wait till we get to the P-Core discussion, because there's another one that they kind of set up. And, I guess at the root of it, it kind of goes to show that you can't really plan around the COVID, right? What was it, that term they had in the very beginning of all this? Rapidly evolving, right? So it's always rapidly evolving. But we were just kind of looking at the P-Core system, and P-Core 4, basically, so this is where we're in, I believe good morning, Senator Sabina Perez is here. Hi.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning to the listening audience.
Thanks for joining us. I know we got a bunch of stuff to get to, but I wanted just maybe because you pay attention. Are we in P-Core 3 right now?
Yeah, I don't think so. It looks like we're, considering the infectivity rate, it should be elevated, or we should be in a state of more precautions. So yeah, my concern is there's a lot of events where people are attending these larger congregations. Especially we just came out of the holiday celebrations. And, it was almost predictable that, there was going to be a rise, and there was, when that happened. So it's pretty clear there's a definite correlation between when we have congregations and more gatherings, there's going to be an increase. And especially with Omicron, we were told that it was going to be it spreads more easily. So, yeah, I think this, really, calls into question, the public health authority, what is their response to these numbers? Do we feel confident enough in our vaccination rates to protect us? And apparently it's not enough. I think there are more measures that need to be taken. I myself take those precautions, but I think as a community, this is something that I think that we need to address, especially with there's more incoming. Even the military personnel from all over the world, Australia, Japan, India, UK, that is a cause of concern when we're having a huge congregation of people from not just within Guam, but coming to Guam. And, what are the precautions that that are in place? And then also to add to that, the schools. Again, there are populations that have, especially the younger children who may not have been vaccinated, or, there are populations that have not been fully vaccinated. And so that there is that potential for more spread within the community. I think, it's always important to err on the side of caution, rather than, put our faith in certain measures. I think the more layers of protection that we have for our community, I think the better that we can come out of this. Guam is a small island, and as such, we are more vulnerable. If you look at larger areas in the continent, they can at least probably bear the brunt a little bit better than an island. And I think we have to take more precautions when it comes to protecting the health of our people, especially we're in a public health emergency. I think it's important to really take these numbers that are being projected every day, and it looks almost like it's an exponential growth when you look at the CAR score. That it means it's the infection rate is basically it's spreading through the community much more. It's concerning to me.
Yeah, it's concerning to a lot of people, because the ramp up to it we saw it all over. It almost reminds me of the beginning of the pandemic. Remember before we had our first cases, it wasn't like COVID just popped out of nowhere. I mean, that thing was in the news, since December of the previous year. And And here we were doing these videos. Hey, come to Guam. We don't got COVID. And then we had COVID. And so with this Omicron, it's like we had the governor saying it's a super typhoon, prepare for it. But then we didn't even ramp up the testing. Now we're making it more difficult for people to be tested. And then she said, prepare for a super typhoon. But then out of the other side of their mouth, they loosen the restrictions. They increase the gathering limit. And so when they say that Dr. Berg said they predicted this surge. Well, it's because you allowed it by loosening the restrictions, even though you knew full well that Omicron was all the rage around the world and it was going to come here in a matter of time. So I agree. I mean, I never heard prepare for a super typhoon and then everyone just lays on the couch playing video. We don't do anything to prepare. I mean, when we grew up, if you're going to use the super typhoon analogy, I felt like it was a good analogy because there's a lot of us who have lived through a super typhoon. You know what you do during a super typhoon. It's a lot, not nothing. And I'm just not sure you're right. What did we do? We didn't really do anything. We started up testing. We kept it limited. Now it's, to a lot of people with this appointment thing, they feel like it's more limited. We should be making it easier. So again, it's the same thing with the car score. We get this doom and gloom, but then the response is not, so the people don't know how serious to take it. And to me, it just all goes back to the leadership and the woeful messaging. That we get messaging where, people are just supposed to figure out that we're doing appointment only. They put something out on a Friday and then scratch their head saying, oh, why does nobody know what's going on?
Yeah, and I think really like the hospitals, I mean, we only have limited capacity still, right? Despite the investment that has been coming into Guam. It's like they really have to weigh in, if these policies are going to be in place, do we have the capacity to help assist people? But I truly believe prevention is the best approach. We can definitely, it's better to prevent this from happening. Yeah, I agree. There has to be some change in this process, and the public health authority really. I think there should be a more coordinated approach to this, and yeah, it lies with the Department of Public Health. The authority lies with the Department of Public Health to really use this information and demand certain protections in the community.
Right, but I mean, you say that, but we all know that the public health is not the public health authority. They can't even wipe their nose without getting a Kleenex from Adaloop. So that's where I think, and that's been the issue this whole pandemic, is that you have public health mixing with politics. You know what I mean? Omicron's here. What should we do? Do we need to do anything? Do we need to make it more difficult for people to live their lives? No, because it's an election and we need a nice Christmas video for the election, the first Christmas before the election. You know what I mean? It just, to me, a lot of the stuff that we're deciding or not deciding is just based on politics.
Yeah, it's I think there should be the basis. We all believe that we were living in a new norm, and I haven't seen really foundational changes. I think we're still continuing as is.
I mean, what kind of public health emergency is it when you can have re-election campaign fundraisers? I mean, it's not an emergency anymore. And it just, if it's serious, let it be serious. But don't, let your actions belie your words. I mean, if you're telling us to prepare and it's going to be bad, and we look around and we see the car score is way up, the cases are way up, but we don't see a corresponding, response from the governor or lieutenant governor or public health for that matter, you're right, it is concerning, especially because we've been in this situation before where people were clamoring for preparation and it led to a surge where we lost way too many people. So, of course, where we're coming from is we just don't want it to happen again. A lot of people might hear what we're saying and just say, oh, they just criticize everything. They just never shut up. You always complain. You don't offer a solution. Well, we offer a lot of solutions. But it's a free country, and people can be critical of, public policies on any day of the week. Senator, thank you for your thoughts on that. But I wanted to ask you about this Vista Del Mar project as the environment chair, because when you talk about this big project, the number one thing people mention, or at least people I talk to, is the environmental concerns. And you're the environmental chair, so I wanted to just get right to it. What do you think are some of the biggest issues with this project?
Yeah, I think the water. I think our aquifer consumption of water is a huge concern for me. The historic impacts. A lot of this is a concern for me, as well as affordable housing. So yes, there's going to be increase in I guess units, but will those be for people in need, or is it going to be for speculative um, you know consumers? So I think really when we think about these large projects, I always think about the cumulative impacts to our island. um, you know there's something in economics called externalized benefits, right? We all hear about externalized cost, where the cost of the damage to the environment is passed on or passed down the road. And here we're looking at, potentially harming the environment that really sustains us. So we talk about our aquifer. We only have one aquifer that, we really need to protect. And if we're looking at the cumulative development on Guam, almost, I don't want to think about, what comes to mind is this idea of tragedy of the commons, where you have the gradual, breakdown of a common, what is considered a common good, such as our water resource. And, if we don't have enough protections in place, it could really impact our sustainability on this island. So I think that's one of the largest concerns for me. I know I did read the BSP report, and they put in a lot of conditions. But I think, in government, I think what we need to do is look more at the cumulative impacts of things, whether it's on the base or outside of, in the community. They all have the impact to our aquifer. So I think that's a huge concern for me.
You mentioned BSP's concerns and conditions. Can you tell us a little more detail about that? And do you feel like these conditions are something that the developer can put into place and still build the project, or are they?
Yeah. So the way it is, it looks like there are conditions. So it's potential that it could still the project can still occur if those conditions are met. So basically, it has to do with the prevention of like pollution runoff into our coastal waters. I think there also is about green, more conservation approaches. But again, it doesn't go far enough, I think, into looking at the cumulative impacts on Guam. GWA, we waste about 50% of the water. And so now we're looking at a large development, which uses a lot of water. What is that going to do to our aquifer, it also as well. So we're looking at not just the direct impacts of the development, where there's an increase in potential runoff because of there's more pavement. So instead of water recharging our aquifer, it runs off into the ocean, and with that, the pollutants it brings. So those, and then of course our coral reefs, which are really being affected by many different factors, climate change and all the human impacts that occur. So there is, obviously, we need to provide housing, but it's always been my thinking that if we can rejuvenate these areas that are in need of redevelopment, urban areas, let's redevelop those areas first, provide the affordable housing, provide, the units for tourists, rather than try to develop an area that's green and it's no one's ever recreated a limestone forest. That takes millennia to do. And the limestone forest is integral to protection of our aquifer. And, I think we really need to take a long, hard look at that and really, not take it for granted anymore. The value that nature brings. And, I think there can be development, but it should be in a different location, I think, in regards to, urbanized areas. I know there's a lot of work that went into it, but I think that the site is problematic. When you look at the designs, this design could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't say Guam, right? And I feel that it really needs to be more. It really has to take into consideration more of the the needs of our island. Um,
Let me ask you this. So we had the tourism czar, president, CEO, GVB, former Governor Carl Gutierrez, Uncle Carl to a lot of people. He didn't know anything about the project. I was like, hey, what about this project? I never heard, which was weird. But so we're doing this whole cultural tourism thing, right? You talk to all the tourism people, and we're trying to pivot to this, like, hey, look at us in our grass skirts, kind of, you know what I mean? This is our culture. Come over here, go on the river, a lot of eco kind of stuff. Um, and I don't know, this project kind of fits in with that. But then there are those who would argue, and this is what maybe you can respond to this. There are those who would say, hey, right now tourism is dead. 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, we're going to be, seeing more tourists. And so we should do things now to boost up what we have to offer, all these different markets. And so there are people who would say that, oh, a project like this, I mean, they're dusting off the intent of developing outside of Tumon, which is why this project, we're even talking about it, is because they said, oh, Tumon's Tumon, but why don't we go develop where there is no development, which is a dumb idea to me, but that's what the intent was, right? It's like, hey, let's go and we'll develop over here. And so what do you say to those people who say that, oh, this is going to be good for Guam, it's going to, lead to more jobs, it's going to be another arrow in our tourism quiver, if you will?
yeah, I think it's important when it comes to tourism, we have to have a unique branding, and if we're becoming like anybody else, then it's really undermining, I think, the basis of our tourist industry. And I think really about cultural, if we really want to present the cultural aspect of Guam, which is what makes us unique, right? One of our cultural practices is really stewardship, and I think it has to be not just how we're marketing things, but it really should. I mean, tourist people, when they come to Guam, they know, right? They probably can sense if something's really being more of a marketing thing versus what is truly cultural. And I think the more that we can do that, to really show what is cultural and truly cultural to us, I think that would definitely help with the branding aspect of it. Because when you think about the long term, my concerns are the maintenance of these developments. What happens in the long term, and I think it's important for us to really think about sustainability of our island and sustainability of tourism too. I think those two go hand in hand. I mean, if you look at Palau, Palau was rated as one of the top destinations during this pandemic, and it has a lot to do with their protection of their environment. And it's really about committing ourselves to that, committing ourselves to what is truly in the best interest of protecting our island, our culture, because that will have a long-term effect, positive effect on our industry.
Senator, let's move along. We'll just kind of like run down your oversights, starting, I guess, with revenue tax. Anything new with revenue tax?
Yeah, I'm trying to get more updates on the tobacco taxes. I know the last conversation I had was they were looking into perhaps another plan with the state of Hawaii, developing some sort of memorandum of agreement with them in regards to purchases of stamps. But I know it's still hasn't been resolved as far as also the RFP that is also in contention. So yeah, there's still a lot of unresolved issues there. But I think it's so important that we do implement the cigarette stamps to ensure compliance. I mean, that is very important. Again, it's my hope that DRT can continue the program in the interest of they could do it at a fraction of the cost, as well as I believe they can protect the interest, the public interest, rather than having it privatized. But yeah, everything's been still up in the air right now.
Did you hear anything about that? So there's that email. I know you know what I'm talking about. There's an email. This taxpayer was like, "Hey, what about the GRT or something?" And then I don't know who hit reply all, but like my aunties got it, my godchildren got it. Everyone got this email that had this lady's tax info on it. And then so when we reached out to DRT, the deputy told us that it wasn't DRT that released the info. Then they referred us to OTEC. And I think OTEC was, I want to say, still looking into it. But did you hear anything else about that?
No, I don't think. You have to go back and look and see that email. Yeah, to get a chance to see that. So the gist was that
The gist was that it was something that was inadvertently sent around, and it was from a taxpayer to the BPT Division of Rev and Tax, and she was inquiring about something with her balance, or I don't know. I didn't look at it because it had private tax information on it, but I know that it went around the whole island.
Yeah, that's a concern. Disclosure is always a concern.
Right,
yeah, I think they're pretty strict about that. I don't know how that happened. Something I can definitely bring up.
Right. And I know that, hold on, I'm trying to get the statement we got from, here we go. Frank Lujan of OTEC said he could only confirm at this time there is no breach of our systems or its databases. We've taken steps to prevent a recurrence. Well, there's no other information that I'm able to share this time. And that was kind of like the last of it, right? Because I think a bunch of other COVID stuff happened after that, and we weren't able to do a follow-up. But just so you know, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, there should be investigation. That shouldn't happen. There should be no tolerance of that. Whether, it was a automation. I mean, apparently he says it's not an automation error, but that should not be happening. I think, my concern too is the training. So if they're bringing in new people, are they properly trained about disclosure laws?
Yeah.
And so, attesting to that you received the training is not enough. There has to be a follow through with that training. The experienced ones, I could see them being very, very protective. But the new ones, I think, my concern is if there's a proper onboarding as far as disclosure.
Yeah. I mean, I think they had a deputy director who used to be a DRT that had his own issues with disclosing private tax information that I'm not sure was ever resolved, but he's moved on. 931. What about Department of Labor?
Department of Labor, I know they're dealing with the appeals and the waivers right now, the overpayments. I don't have any updates as of now, but I am working with hoping to expand apprenticeship programs. That's one of my focus. Is one of the ways that we can help rebuild the economy here in Guam is through our workforce development.
GSA, procurement. How did procurement become a punchline in this pandemic? I just say procurement. Hey, good one, Chris. Man, dude, you still got it, bro. You're all right, bro. That procurement one, that was, ooh, boy.
You just bring it up. It's like, procurement. Oh, you got jokes, huh?
Oh, you got jokes, huh? Oh, okay. No, but this, like, procurement, I mean, ooh, boy. That's something else.
Definitely a work in progress.
That's such a nice way to put it.
Well, I mean, it's nice to see that, some agencies are turning in their reporting for sole source, emergency, and small purchases. I'm not seeing it from all agencies. I think that's good. That needs to be improved upon. I do appreciate a lot of the attention on it. I think it's one of those things that really needs. It's a complex issue, many working parts. It needs to be addressed. So I think little by little, hopefully we can make these changes that are going to make procurement make it not a punchline anymore, basically. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Did you see that I don't know if we talked about this. Did we talk about the public auditor's 2022 work calendar? One of the audits he's going to do is a GovGuam-wide audit or some type of audit on sole source emergency procurement with GSA.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think because there's a lot of attention on that because these are the non-competitive contracts, which can cost the government a lot of money. So I think the more that we, use the competitive methods, the better off for, for everyone all around, from government to, the local vendors. We at this time, I think it's better to establish these practices where we can utilize very precious dollars, so that we can direct this money towards the areas that are much needed, from our health to education and safety of our people, as well as how to anti-poverty. We really need to address a lot of the issues in our community regarding the cost of living. So how can we use this money better rather than paying these premium for services and goods that the government needs? So yeah, ultimately that's what I'm working at.
Yeah, I mean, you're very consistent, Senator, the things you say on this show when you talk about above step recruitment, when you talk about procurement. I notice that you always kind of wrap it up with a little bow that says, hey, taxpayer dollars precious. We need to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck across the board, whether it's procurement or personnel. So I appreciate the consistency.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something that needs a lot of work. And yeah, I'm committed to making the changes.
Anything in closing, Senator?
No, just thank you so much. And, everybody be safe out there. Please practice social distancing, face masks. Yeah, and, protect yourself and protect your family. I think this is really an important time that we need to look out for each other.
Oh, one last thing. So we're getting Senator Rogel on tomorrow about mandatory trash service. There was we posted something on our Instagram, Jay, and it was about illegal dumping, and we were talking about people getting trash service, and they had come out with a stat where it was like 40% of residents. Sorry.
Yeah, let me pull that up real quick.
Yeah. It was basically like there's this crazy amount of people who aren't getting trash service.
Yeah, I think it's even more than a third.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get it to Jay.
Yeah. So I know there's roughly about 19,000 who are on trash service. If you compare it to the numbers with, let's say, Guam Waterworks, there's about 30,000 customers. So there definitely could be an increase in the number of household clients.
Right. So it's 44% of island residents are not paying for residential trash collection. A plan is in the works to change this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do support the island-wide collection service, and I've been studying this for the past term and this term to figure out a way to help mitigate some of the the cost. That's one of the concerns is the lifeline cost, and I'm still trying to figure out how we can subsidize that. Of course, as you increase the number of customers, it helps spread the cost as well. But I think this is one of the tools to address illegal dumping, is to ensure that there is collection. So that's one of the reasons why I do support trash collection for all households.
Right. There were comments though, I agree. There were some comments where people were saying, "Hey, not everyone who doesn't get trash service is trashing the island." I go to the dump. I don't pay 90 something, whatever it is. It's like over $100. I pay 15 when I go to the dump. And, I'm not illegal dumping. I don't know if I'm contributing to the problem. I'm using the option that's available that works for me. We don't make a lot of trash, to me, and it's the cost. I'm not willing to pay over $100 or whatever when I'm not even going to make that much trash, and I could do it for 15 down the road, and I stay next to the dump. So am I a bad guy?
No, we appreciate those responsible citizens that are properly disposing of their trash. And in fact, Chairman Gale was mentioning that he believes that a lot of the people that are not on the trash service are piggybacking. So they're utilizing their neighbor's trash or the office trash. So that's what they think is happening. But yeah, you're right. It's not accurate to say that it's not all people not on service are illegal dumping, but it is a contributing factor to it, that some people out there may be involved in directly or indirectly, right? They may be hiring somebody that is not properly disposing of the trash. So,
You know what was in the comments too, Senator? Is a lot of people who pay for solid waste services were saying that their recyclables haven't been picked up in over a month, and there's a delay with the recyclables. So I don't know if that's something you want to look into.
yeah, and I'm working on a bill to address that, and hopefully it'll be out this either next month or this month to help assist with the recycling. But ultimately, I think the problem is, the Basel Convention internationally. It's really about countries that are able to accept plastic. So plastic has become one of those, waste products that have been more difficult to export. And the U.S. is not part of the Basel Convention, but it does affect our ability to transport this waste to other countries that have signed on to it. So it is in addition to finding international collectors, I think we have to really think about minimizing the plastics coming into Guam. If not minimizing, then how do we recycle it? And I think there are potential ways of dealing with it. But ultimately, again, the more upstream you can prevent the trash from being developed, the better off we are. So really about thinking about our consumer choices. That's one of the most effective things is, what happens to that packaging after you purchase that product. We really need everybody to kind of think, help out with this. Do we really need to purchase that product that's in plastic? Or what can we do to minimize plastics in our households? And perhaps there are business ideas out there. And that's what my bill would do is hopefully support those ventures that can use this for more beneficial uses than to be placed in the landfill. But I think ultimately, how we produce, how these products are made, I think that's going to be the solution. Is rethinking production, so we're not creating so much waste products.
Right on. Appreciate your time, Senator.
Thank you for this time, and have a great day. Take care, everybody.
You too. Be safe. Senator Sabina Perez, always a good talk. 9:41.